Hi Algebra 1 students, this is going to be a quick tutorial on IXL U.14, which is solving systems of equations using any method. So you're going to want to hop onto IXL.com, go to Algebra 1, and go down to U.14, solve a system of equations using any method. So here we see the first question that I have. And I don't know if I realized this before, but it says learn with an example. So that would be also a really cool way to get some extra help if you needed it. So first things first, we have already learned two methods of solving a system. Again, a system meaning two or more. So a system of equations. In Algebra 1, we're going to always deal with two. A system of equations has two different variables in those two equations, okay? Sometimes, as you see in the question here, one of the variables may or may not be there, but typically we will see two different variables and two equations. So the two different ways to solve this are called substitution and elimination. So substitution is where you substitute one equation into the other, and elimination or combination, it could be called, is where you eliminate a variable by combining the rows. So how can you figure out which one is best? So let's take a look. This first one here, U.14, I'll just call it number 1. Again, it might be different from what you have on yours, but the process is going to be the same. So you need to make sure that you are on your own sheet of paper, writing down your work, completing your questions, submitting those pictures to Google Classroom for credit. Typically, IXLs have been bonus up until now, but this is actually an assignment that you need to make sure you're doing, okay? So for the first question, we have y equals -4 and 4x minus 8y equals -8. So because this question is set up, one of the equations is in a y equals format, we're going to use substitution. So anytime you see a y equals, not a y, x plus y or x minus y, then the equal sign, but just a y equals or even an x equals on its own, that's going to be a really good indication that substitution will be the easiest method for you. So we're going to take this y equals -4 and we're going to plug it or substitute it into the bottom, okay? So we're going to take 4x minus 8 and we're going to put the -4 right there. We're going to multiply this together. Grab your calculator. You're going to do -8. Don't forget the negative sign in front of the 8. -8 times -4 is positive 32. You're going to go ahead and now solve for x. So see what we did there? We substituted the y in as a number, and now we only have one variable, okay? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to subtract the 32. -8 and -32, grab your calculator. You're taking a -8 and you're minusing more, so you can add those together, keeping the sign. And then we'll undo by dividing by 4. So we have for this question, the answer of x is 10. But you have to make sure you remember and you look at what they're wanting. Okay, they want the x value right here, and then they want the y value right there. Okay, so we just found the x, which was -10, and it just so happens that in this question, we know the y is -4. Sometimes we don't know that, but they did tell us right away that y was already -4. We just had to find the x. So let's go ahead and type in -10 and then -4. Okay, terrific, and it brings us to the next question. So the next question, very similar. The next question gives us a -2x minus 10y equals 18. And then the second equation gives us x equals 6. So just like I said, similar to what we just did, we're focusing on what we were given. We're given x already. We already know x is 6. We already know x is 6. So we're trying to figure out what y is. Well, because we know what one variable is already equal to, we're going to use that substitution method and go ahead and substitute it right in its place in the other equation. That's going to allow us to multiply those numbers together, creating an equation with just one variable, y in this case, and then we're just going to solve for it. So remember, we're going to add the 12. We're going to always undo that addition or subtraction first. When we add these together, 1 plus 1, well, 8 plus 2 is 10, and then 10 plus 10 plus 10 will be 30. And then we're going to divide by negative 10. Make sure you bring that negative sign down if you have it there, because you will need to divide it away, and it will dictate your answer. So 30 divided by negative 10 is negative 3. And I just remembered we forgot to check the first one. So remember, you really want to, with these IXLs, check to make sure you have it right. That way you know before you type it in, because you're not going to want to type it in and have your SMART score decrease when you know you could have just quickly checked it in about 5 seconds. So we're going to go ahead, and we think this is our x and this is our y, so we're just going to type it into the equation, the left side. Negative 2 times x value is 6 minus 10 times the negative y value, which is negative 3, and we get an 18. So basically we checked it in here. We already know x was 6, so we definitely know that this is our answer. We plug it in to the computer, we're going to get it right. So we'll go ahead and submit. Super wonderful. And now we're on to the next problem. Okay. Try to use the space over here. Number 3, we have another one where they give us right away what y is equal to. So they give us y is equal to negative 8. So we're going to take that and we're going to go ahead and substitute it right away. So negative 6x plus 2 times negative 8 equals negative 10. We always multiply what we just substituted in. And now we're solving for x, so we're going to undo our addition or subtraction first. 16. And then undo our multiplication or division away from the x last. So here, again, since they're opposite signs, you're going to go ahead and subtract these two. Use your calculator. Negative 10 plus 16 is 6, and then we're going to divide by negative 6. Again, making sure we drop down that negative with the 6 and it divides away with it. We get x is negative 1. Again, they told us that y was negative 8. So that's what we're thinking our answer is. We're going to go ahead and use the calculator to verify that. So we have negative 6 times what we think x is, negative 1, plus 2 times negative 8. And this right here says our, oops, I forgot my 2 in front. So if you can see, I didn't get my negative 10 that I was expecting to get, and I realized I forgot the 2 right there. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in again. So negative 2 times, negative 6 times negative 1 plus 2 times negative 8, and that does give me the negative 10 that we're looking for. So negative 1 comma negative 8. Negative 1, negative 8. Okay, great. All right, so this one looks a little bit different than the ones we just did. So let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to do for this problem. So for this problem, typically what I would do for this question is, because we have y equals and y equals format, I would take what the first equation told me y was equal to and substitute it in place of this y right down here, okay? So again, anytime you see a y equals or an x equals, substitution is the way to go. So I'm going to replace this entire, just this y, with this binomial piece from the first one. So it's kind of like we're writing this as two equations into one. So we're going to take negative 3x minus 1, and that's going to equal negative 2x minus 4. Sorry about that. You see it there. Okay? So if y is equal to this and y is equal to that, then those two things are equal to each other. Okay? Now we're going to go ahead and get x's. Since they're on different sides, we're going to get them on the same side. So we're going to add over the 2x. You could also add over the 3x. I personally prefer my x to be on the left side, so I just always move my x's to the left. My math here gives me a negative 1x. Drop down the pieces I didn't use with their signs. To get x alone, remember we always undo our addition or subtraction first. Add down, and then undo our multiplication or division second or last. So this one we get x to be negative 3, and this is different than the other problems because we were always given what either the x or the y equaled to, but we weren't given what y was equal to here. So what we're going to have to do is take this information that x is 3 and go ahead and plug it into one of these two equations. I'll just do this one right here. So I'm going to take that x equals 3 and plug it in right there. So I'm going to do my order of operations, my PEMDAS. I'm going to multiply first, and then I'm going to do my subtraction. So that's what I think my answer is. I'm going to check it before I go to my, to put that in. So now I'm going to type in the left side. So I'm going to do negative 3 times 3 minus 1. Does that give me negative 10? Yes, it does. Then I'm going to type this in. Negative 2 times 3 minus 4. Does that also equal the y value negative 10? Yes, it does. You can see it right there. Okay? So we're typing that in. We see that it works, and we have our 3 comma negative 10. Okay? They've given us a very similar one for the next question. Number 5. Again, my numbers might be different than yours. This is all randomly generated, these questions, so we may or may not see the same ones, but the process of how to do this will always be the same depending upon how the questions are given to you. So again, we see we have y equals and y equals. So for this one, I'm going to take this top equation, I'm going to go ahead and substitute right into the bottom. If you want to take this bottom one and put it right into the top, it's the same exact thing. Okay, we're going ahead and creating one equation with one variable, or well, one equation with in this case with one variable, because we are substituting it in place of the other one. Okay, so we have over here, let me actually put this on the left side just because I see it has a larger x value. And like I said, I like my x's on the left. And so if I like my x's on the left, it makes sense for me to put the larger number there, if I can. Because now I'm going to have 7 minus 3, I get a positive 4. Whereas if I did the other way, I'd get a negative 4. I'd still get the right answer, but some of us might not like working with negatives as much. So let's go ahead and add the 5. Again, we're going to undo our addition or subtraction. So since we see subtraction, we're going to undo it with addition. What we do to one side, we do to the other. We're going to add these together and then undo our multiplication with division to get the x. And just like we did above, we're going to go ahead and plug in to either one of them, it does not matter, the 1 for our x. So I'll just do it to the bottom one. 7 times 1 is 7, minus 5 is 2. So just be careful as you're typing this in. You don't want to put the 2 first just because you see it first on the left side. You want to put the x value in the first spot and the y value in the second spot. So let's go ahead and check this to make sure. So 3 times x, which we say is 1, minus 1, does that equal 2? Yes, it does. And 7 times 1 minus 5. Does that equal 2? Yes, it does. So so you can see it there. So we checked it to make sure it equaled, and we're going to type in 1, 2 for our answers. Okay? Super, woohoo! All right, and then the next one here, we see very, very similar. You can see you get great practice at how to solve these. They're all super similar to one another. So I'm going to go ahead and take this equation, y is equal to it, and substitute it in right there. So we have 4x plus 2 equals 3x plus 4. I'm going to get all the x's on one side. 4 minus 3 is 1x. Drop down the numbers and the signs I didn't use, and then solve for x. In this case, all I have to do is subtract away, undo that addition of 2 by subtracting by 2. So we get x is 2. I'm going to go back up to go ahead and plug the 2 in place of the x there. So y is equal to 4 times 2 plus 2. That's going to be 8 plus 2. So that's going to be 10. So we're thinking the answer is 2, 10. And let's check that. So we have 4 times 2 plus 2, which is 10. We have 3 times 2 plus 4, which is also 10. So we know we got it right. We type in 2, 10. Submit. Great. Okay, so it seems like we had 3 questions. The very first 3 questions were all where they told us what x was equal to or what y was equal to, so very super simple. Then the next 3 questions were all the y equals format where substitution worked really well. And now this next question I see lends itself very nicely to what we call the elimination or combination method. So as you can see, we don't have an x equals or y equals. We have our x's and y's actually on the same side of the equation. Okay? So I'll write that down. So when the x's and the y's are on the same side of the equation, you have x's lined up with x's, y's with y's, equal signs, numbers with numbers. This lends itself really nicely to the elimination method because everything is lined up nice. What I'd like to go ahead and point out to you guys is that in order for us to do the elimination method, we're actually combining or adding these rows together. Now, if I add these rows together, nothing's going to cancel because nothing are opposites as they sit right now. But wouldn't it be really nice if this was a positive 5x? Because then when we added these together, that would cancel. That would be 0, and that would make it so much easier for us to solve for y. So can I do this? Yeah, but you just need to make sure that you do it. You need to make sure you do good math, which means you need to make sure you do to all the parts. So if you're going to go ahead and change this sign, you have to go ahead and change everybody's sign in that row, okay? Basically what we just did there was we multiplied the entire row by -1. So we multiplied by -1, by -1, by -1, which changed everybody's sign. So now we're going to go ahead and add these rows together. Just add down normally. So -5 plus 5 is 0. -7 plus 3 is -4y's. And again, they do need to be lined up for you, with like terms in order for you to add them together. And then 20 plus 20 is 40. And see how we created a nice, simple equation to solve for? All we do is just divide by -4. Okay? Don't forget, we have to find the x value that goes along with this. So it's your choice. You pick whichever question or whichever equation that you feel like you want to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick the top one. So I'm going to pick -5x minus 7, and instead of y, I'm going to put in the y that I found from the step before. I'm going to multiply those together, so 2 negatives do make a positive. We're going to go ahead and subtract the 70. We're going to get a -5x. 20 minus 70 is -50. And then I'm going to divide by -5 here to cancel to get what x is equal to. So a negative divided by negative is a positive, and 50 divided by 5 is 10. So it looks like here our answer should be positive 10 for our x and negative 10 for our y. Let's check it out before we type it in. So we're going to go back to the original. So it's really important that you go back to the original questions that you have printed right here, okay? So we have -5 times positive 10 minus 7 times negative 10, and that does equal 20, okay? We'll do the bottom equation, -5 times positive 10 minus 3 times negative 10, and that also equals -20. So we have our answers, we know they're right, we can go ahead and type them in. So we have 10, comma, -10. Submit. That's right, woohoo. All right, almost there. Let's go ahead and take a look at this next one right here. So that's going to be, what, number 8. So we have x minus 2y equals 4. And then we have -5x plus 5y equals 15. Okay? This one's just a little bit more difficult because we don't have something we can cancel immediately right here, and we don't have something where we can just multiply through by a negative or just change everybody's signs like we did in the last problem, okay? So what I really want you to focus on is where you see maybe just a 1x or a 1y, and my eyes are focusing right here because having this be a 1 is super helpful because we know 1 times anything is that anything that we multiplied by. So I can really put any number in front of this x that I want very easily. And wouldn't it be really nice if that was a positive 5 right there? Because then we can use that elimination method to cancel it. So that's what I'm going to do. But remember, if I put a 5 here, that means everybody gets multiplied by 5. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a parenthesis, and I'm going to put a 5 out in front so I make sure to do that. It's a lot easier when you're just changing the entire row, all those signs. Sometimes it gets a little bit tricky if you don't actually write out your steps here. So I'm going to go ahead and just multiply the entire top row by a 5. And then the entire bottom row can just stay exactly the same. Okay? So I think that's the easiest way to do this problem. Another way to do the problem, you might say, you know what, I really like the substitution method, and since x is I can get x alone by just adding over that 2y. I'm going to do that step first. I'm going to add over the 2y and then take that and plug it in here. I think that just causes a lot more work, and I like the elimination method a lot better because watch what's going to happen. We're just literally going to add the rows together and those cancel. So we get to our answer a lot quicker. -10y plus 5y is -5y, and 20 and 15 is 35. So when we divide away the -5, we get -7. Okay? And just like before, we have to go ahead and find the x. I highly suggest we go into the equation where the x or the numbers are the simplest. So let's take that -7 and plug it right in for that y. So x minus 2 times -7 equals 4. Okay? Make sure you're substituting it into the right letter. Sometimes it does happen where we substitute into the wrong letter and then obviously we get the wrong answer. Do those multiplications once you do your first substitution. A negative times a negative is a positive. And then we'll go ahead and solve for x by undoing whatever operation is there. So positive 14, we're going to subtract it over. And we end up adding those and getting a -10. So it looks like our answer is -10, comma, -7. Let's check that before we put it into the computer. So we'll go up to the original equation and we'll do -10 minus 2 times -7, and we get 4. And then we'll put it into the bottom, -5 times -10 plus 5 times -7, and we get our 15. So we did it right. We know we got it. -10, comma, -7. Okay, and we hit submit. Great job, woohoo, and we're at our 65. Okay, so it seems like it took me about 8 problems to get to our 65 here. That is your goal score, the SMART score of 65. If you would like to continue with this, this IXL to get higher than a 65, that's just going to get you more bonus points. So just remember though that you, the more you do, the chance you have of also dropping down below your 65. So you want to make sure you're ending up on your 65 because I only see the last score that you end with, okay? Again, if you're having trouble with these, if you get this wrong, so say we type in just a couple of numbers here and get it wrong, it says, sorry, incorrect, okay? It says this is the correct answer. We're actually kind of close, so just guessed. But then it says explanation. Please make sure you're looking at this. This is not just here just for the fun of it, okay? It's here to help you, okay? So it says you answered this. To solve using substitution, you're going to follow these steps. Again, I would not recommend substitution for this one unless you're like gung-ho, you love it. You can definitely do it by subtracting over the 2, which they'll tell you isolate the variable, step 1. So that means subtract over the 2, plug the result into the step 1, and solve. It says use any method. So again, it basically goes through with you how to do the whole problem. This is step 1, this is step 2, this is all the work for it. This is what you do to distribute. Basically the same thing that I'm doing here, okay, to get the answer. So then you can go ahead and say, got it, and then you can get your next problem. But again, notice it dropped me down to, oh, you probably don't see that. It dropped me down to a 58 for my SMART score, okay, because I got that one wrong. So keep that in mind that you're definitely going to want to always check them in your calculator before you move on to the next problem, okay? I hope you guys found this tutorial really helpful. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me or shoot me a private message on Google Classroom with any questions you have. Remember, we have done 1 whole week of substitution, 1 whole week of elimination, so this should be our kind of recap. If you were not getting it over those 2 weeks, this is the week where you need to make sure you're understanding it as we're moving into something different next week. Okay, so please make sure you're reaching out and letting either myself or Ms. Conway know what questions you have. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.